Alrighty, so today we're doing lesson 1-8, 1-9, and 1-10 notes. So if you could please follow along, that would be great. So 1-8 is all about roots. So square roots, cube roots, perfect cubes, all of the above. So the first thing we're going to start with is square root. So we're going to define what is a square root. And this is when one of the two equal factors of a number. Okay, so an example would be if we had 3 squared is equal to 9, the square root of 9 is equal to 3. Okay, for radical sign, this is the symbol used to indicate a positive square root. And this is the symbol. Okay, and then we have cube root, which is one of 3 equal factors of a number. So an example of that would mean, this is how you would write it, the 3 goes inside the little v of the square root part. So if you're looking for the cube root of 64, that's going to be equal to 4. This is because 4 times 4 times 4 is equal to 64. Okay, and the last one we have is perfect cubes. This is a rational number whose cube root is a whole number. So what that means, a perfect cube would be 27 because 3 times 3 times 3 is equal to 27. So this would be a perfect cube. Alright, so let's go ahead and go on to the actual problems for today. So some examples. So the first one, we're looking for the square root of 64. So what times what is going to give us 64? Hopefully you know that number is 8. So the square root of 64 is equal to 8. Okay, number 2, as you can see, there's this plus or minus sign in front of the square root. So in our answer, we have to have the plus or minus. Okay, let's just say 1.21. What's going to be the square root of 1.21? So, if you were to actually solve it, we'd have 1.1 times 1.1, and that does give you 1.21. So our answer would equal plus or minus 1.1. Okay, at this point you could probably be using a calculator for some of them to check your answers, but I want to make sure that you are still trying these on your own. Okay, number 3. So this negative symbol, it can go either on the top or the bottom, it doesn't matter. I just like to put it to the top because it makes more sense to me. So how I would write this would be a negative square root of 25 over the square root of 36. So I would solve what is the square root of 25. I know that's 5. And the square root of 36 is 6. So I'm going to take this negative sign out in front and put it with the whole problem. So that answer would be negative 5, 6. Okay, number 4, we have square root of a negative 16. The biggest hint here is the negative sign inside of the radical sign. So this would mean no real solution. Okay, and what that means is you cannot have a negative on the inside. So on the inside of your radical symbol. All right. For number 5, now we're trying to find out what does t equal. So I'm going to have to square root because a square root is going to get rid of our squared. So I would get t is equal to, and then what times what is going to give me 169. Well, hopefully you know that. It's going to give you a positive or a negative 13 because you have to think. If you have negative 13 times negative 13, that gets you a positive 169. And a positive 13 times a positive 13 gets you a positive 169. Okay. Then we have number 6. So we have a squared is equal to 289. So I'm going to take the square root on both sides. And I'm going to get a is equal to what times what is equal to 289. So my a is going to equal, once I solve that, a positive or negative 17. Because again, just like number 5, I had negative 17 times negative 17, and that would give me a positive 189. Same thing with a positive 17 times a positive 17, that would give me a positive 289. Okay, number 7, I'm looking for the cubed root of 125. So what I'm going to do is say what times what is going to equal 125. So from there, I have to figure out what I'm going to multiply. I know that 5 times 5 is 25, and if I multiply by 5 again from that, I do get 125. So my answer in the end for the cubed root of 125 would equal 5. Then I have number 8. So I have the cubed root of negative 27. Now, don't be quick to say no solution or no real solution because there's a negative sign. That only works if it's just a regular square root. This is a cubed root. So I have to say what times what is going to give me a negative 27. Well, I know it's going to be a negative number because if I do a negative times a negative times a negative, I'm going to get a negative. So if I did negative 3 times negative 3, I'm going to get a positive 9. Then if you multiply that by a negative 3 again, that's when I would get a negative 27. So my answer for this one is going to be a negative 3. Okay. On the second page here, I have 8 you try problems. I would like you to please check these on your own on Google Classroom under the notes section. I'm just going to write here quickly the answer so that you can pause the video to check your work to see if you did them correct. So, here we go. Okay. All right, then our last example here, it says, Dylan has a planter in the shape of a cube that holds 8 cubic feet of potting soil. Solve the equation 8 is equal to s to the power of 3, or s cubed, to find the side length s of the container. So I have to say, what is the cubed root of 8? So I have to say, what times what is going to get me the answer of 8. So I would have the answer of 2 times 2 times 2, that gets me 8. So 2 would be your answer. So you would say each side of the container is 2 feet. Okay? And then I want you to try the last one on your own, but once you get your answer for that, your answer would be 1.5 feet. Okay? All right, we're going to go on to the next page of notes, which is lesson 1-9, which is estimating